It's easy to be hasty. It's easy to be hasty around Christmas time because you walk into certain stores and a whole wall of those stores are those big screens flashing that same picture at the same time. And men have the tendency to walk and everything else tunes out. And their eyes open wide, they don't blink, and they walk and they stand in front of it and watch and wait. And they watch things they'd never watch at home. It could be SpongeBob, and they just walk from screen to screen. And they'd look down at this one and that one, and they'd compare them, and they'd break open brochures. When do men break open brochures? But they're reading, they're comparing, and they're looking at lumen qualities, and they're looking at what kind of attachments in the back, and can I put my this? And you could be hasty. And you could purchase according to an emotion rather than the plan of the diligent that leads to profit. We got to consider our ways. We've got to consider our ways. And there are myths that we've bought into that for many of us, wow, we've just hit a wall, financial wall. And the stress that causes, the pressure that causes is astronomical. I met a young man yesterday, his name's Matt, out in front of the Super Walmart Center when I was there during the wrapping deal. And Matt's a great guy. And I met his wife and Matt, I met the two of them several months ago at Mike Walsh's house for a financial freedom seminar or course that we offered as one of our Connect groups in the spring of 2008 of this year. And he took all 13 weeks of those courses. He stuck it out. And Matt was telling me how much he appreciated that course from Dave Ramsey and Mike taught it. And he says, man, I'm so thankful for that because it put my wife and I, and they're a young couple, on a right track. And I was thinking of this verse, knowing that I was going to bring it up today, that the plans of the diligent lead to profit. Myth number 2, it will all work out somehow. I say no. God says no. You need a plan. You need a plan. God gives us some really great thought processes as to our plan. Here at Canvas Church, I can only say that the example that Susie and I have is that we've created our own plan, and that plan is this. This is what I do. This is what I teach. It's the 10-10-80 plan. And here's how that breaks down. 10% of all that you earn, all that comes into your life is the Lord's. It should be the Lord's. The Bible says be obedient in this. It should be the Lord's. That off the top, whether it's $10 that comes in or whether it's your paycheck that comes in, it should be the Lord's. The second 10 is that you should save. The plans of the diligent lead to profit. And the other 80% should be the sphere in which we live our lives. That our living conditions, our habits, the way that we spend should be in the context of that 80. Well, I can't live off 80% of my income. You used to, and that's all you made. You used to, and that's all that came in. And we can. Things are more expensive today. And yes, they are. But God is bigger than any inflation. He's bigger than any costs on, he can do it. God can do it. And this is where we change our beliefs and we say, Lord, I need you to touch my finances. I need you to touch my hearts and life. So number 1 that we're going to talk about with this is you pay God. Number 1, you pay God. Go with me, if you would, to Malachi chapter 3. It's not far from right where you're at if you're still in Haggai. Malachi chapter 3 is a few pages over to the right, and it is a great study on what it means to pay God, or what it means to tithe, what it means to put Him first. Remember from last week that God brought the pie in the first place. The reason why, we say pay God is because it's God's in the first place. Tithing is not what an offering is. Offerings are above and beyond tithing. Tithing are tied in with obedience. Offerings are tied in with gesture toward the Lord. Okay, and we're going to see that. Watch this. In verse chapter 10 of Malachi 3, it says, bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. Test me in this, says the Lord Almighty, and see if I don't throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing that you'll not have room enough for it. Now, do we know folks that live there? Have we had a lot of conversations with folks that are at that place? I know that fulfillment of that verse has shown up in my life, but I'm not there all of the time, and I'm looking forward to being one who says, God, I want to continue to gesture toward you that all that I have, all that might come in, I give 10% back to you. I bring it to the storehouse to give back to you. And I share all of this with you because this is what works. People who end up taking this principle seriously would really say, yeah, it's worked in my life. It doesn't work so that you get little miracles. Let's really call this what it's supposed to be. It's our gesture toward God, whether he never put that second part in that verse ever again. Whether he never said, and I will give back to you. Whether he never said that it'll be a blessing on your life. Whether he never said those things, that we give to God because he's given to us. You know, that brings me to a place of, I got a letter, I got an email from an awesome family in our church. And they told me, they wrote this for me. And I got to take the time to show you this. I got to have you see this real quick because this is so perfect for this part of the message. And I'll call the musicians up in just a few moments, but just give me a little bit here. This is what this says. Up until 3 years ago, we did not understand the importance of tithing. In our minds, we just couldn't afford to tithe. How could we give God 10% when there wasn't any money left over after paying the bills and our other expenses? One morning I heard a message at a church that changed the course of our lives. And it started us on a journey of faith in tithing. At the time that my husband was battling cancer and going through chemotherapy, he had been on sick leave for 9 months, forfeiting all overtime pay. In addition, we were slammed with medical bills and they continued to pile up. Pretty difficult situation. The message that Sunday morning was about how tithing is an act of worship, like we read earlier. It is a trusting God completely to meet all of your needs and putting him first in your life. That Sunday morning, the realization of trusting God really hit home with me. How could I trust God to heal my husband and not trust him with our tithes? We were living a God-first life when we were choosing, were we living a God-first life when we were choosing what areas to trust him in and not? I came home from church and told him that we needed to rethink our position on tithing. I shared with him the message that I had heard and how convicted I was that we needed to start tithing and that the tithe should come off of our gross income. That very day we made a commitment to begin tithing. And this isn't even at our church. So this isn't something that I'm reading just because it's benefited Canvas. I told you last week, you start talking with people who have a lifestyle of tithing and they do it wherever they're at. Now watch. It has been truly an incredible journey of faith that continues to be one. We've learned it's one thing to trust God in the easy times, but to trust him during the difficult times. It tests our limits and exercises our faith. We would like to share with you a couple of phenomenal stories that have happened to us since we started tithing. Fast forward a year from the time we started tithing. We felt led to give some money to a pastor with a large family to help them out with their Christmas. We talked it over, we prayed about it, and came up with an amount to give. That was way out of our budget. One of the things laid upon our hearts was to give the money in cash so that the pastor wouldn't have to pay taxes on our gift. We followed through and gave the amount that we felt that God wanted us to give. A week later, my husband was given a Christmas bonus to the exact amount that we gave the pastor and his family. Even better, it was written on the boss's personal account so that we would not be taxed on the bonus. The money we gave came back to us down to the last penny. Several months ago, our son ended up in a situation where he needed me to take over his finances to help get him back on track. One of the first things I suggested was that he pray about beginning to tithe. He had already been convicted about tithing and said that he was ready to follow through and start tithing. Looking at his finances, there was no way on paper that he could tithe and pay his bills. I told him we had to believe God and that God would take care of his needs and that he would come through in ways that we could never imagine. It might even be that my husband and I would get some overtime and we could help out with his finances. A couple of weeks later, things went from bad to worse. My husband's hours had been cut and my son had gotten a couple of unexpected bills on top of the stack that were mounting up. I started struggling with doubt and fear. Hadn't I told my son that God would take care of him? I had taken a stand for God and proclaimed his promises to meet our needs. Was God going to let me down? In the physical realm, nothing appeared to be happening, at least not as fast or in the way that I thought it should. I continued to pray and told God that I really needed him to come through for us. We needed a sign or something from him, and we needed it fast.